like to welcome everyone to our webinar on 5 tips to boost students' mental health. My name is Chuck Fisher. I'm the Executive Director of Dovetail Learning, and Dovetail is hosting this webinar. We do resilience training for educators as well as healthcare providers and families. And my background is as a school counselor, over 25 years in elementary, middle school, high school. So worked in graduate education and just love this work because I was not resilient in certain ways growing up. Had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, and it's such a gift to be able to give this to others. Just one more tidbit. I'm a black belt in Aikido, which is the peaceful martial art, and the skill sets that we talk about that we'll show you are based on the martial arts. Uh, Amanda, you want to say a couple things about yourself, including your day today?
Absolutely. Today was day one for the school district that I work in. I'm a marriage family therapist and I work in Auburn Union School District. I've been there since 2016 and I've been doing work in the mental health field within school since 2011. I also studied early childhood development and did that for over 20 years. So I have a lot of experience with children and working in the school. So I can hopefully relate to many of you and what's going on at your schools and what brings you to this webinar today.
And speaking of that, just some housekeeping. We have a chat window and Q&A. I'd love to have you put in anything you'd like us to address. Um, and I'll start by just giving you a little bit about Dovetail. Some of you may know, but Dovetail Learning is a nonprofit. We're here to strengthen adults and children's resilience so that we can make the world a better place. And we love this piece here from the National Commission on Social Emotional Academic Learning. We kind of adopted it, to help us and all of us, everyone, make schools a place where children can learn how to be the best possible versions of themselves, which isn't that just what life's all about, Amanda?
Absolutely.
I
And
know.
so much of that is within the schools too, that we're really diving into that whole child, right?
Mm-hmm, indeed, we are. Um, I'm not seeing, oh, there it is. I want to make sure the recording was on. So yes, thank you for that, Amanda. Um, just a couple more things about Dovetail. Dovetail offers our work as an open education resource. So if you go on our website, you can download any of our work for free, adapt it, use it, give attribution to Dovetail, collaborate. We love collaborators. And if you publish something, the Creative Commons license asks you to publish it also as an open education resource with the same license. So we talk about universal mental health and how important it is and how we get it. Um, I was having a conversation with some professionals today in the healthcare field, and they were saying, well, we really don't like the word mental health. It's really just lodges everything in the brain, and it's really, we're talking about holistic well-being.
Yes.
Um, and What's your experience, Amanda, in schools using the word mental health? How does it frame things?
Um, I also prefer well-being because I think mental health sometimes gets connected with, that you have problems or, you have some kind of permanent diagnosis or there's something wrong with you. And the reality is we all struggle with different times when our mental health is healthy or unhealthy. And I like the idea of being because mental health is something that everyone deals with. And like this says, it's universal. We are all human. We all have, different experiences with different things that trigger us or, cause us different emotional struggles. And that's just part of being a human.
Isn't it though? It's been part of my humanness. And at one point I realized that, well, mental health actually is really the health of my thinking. Uh,
Yes.
and there's a lot of unhealthy thinking patterns we can have. We'll get to that in a minute. Just to cover the baselines, we like to this quote from Ann Maston, University of Minnesota. You know, everyone has this superpower called resilience, and it's just a miracle that we do. It's not rare and special. It's something that can be drawn out of all of us. Um, and I'll just give a personal example. Because of my multiple ACEs, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, I did not do school. And I ran away from school in third grade. I failed sixth grade. I had suicidal ideation in middle school and got lost in drugs and alcohol in high school. And here I am with my PhD and successful career. And resilience is part of our nature. So anytime you're working with anyone who looks like they don't have it, think of me or your own story. Uh, so at Dovetail, what we've put together is an approach to resilience that includes patterns, two sets of patterns we call cultural resilience and reactive resilience, or cultural patterns and protective patterns, and three sets of skills. Uh, Skills for centering ourselves. We have to be centered. I have to be centered myself first before I can be of any good to someone else. Skills for connecting, and then skills for working together in a collaborative way. And we're not going to cover nearly a bit of that in today's webinar, but having that as a backdrop, you'll see why we are covering what we do cover. The cultural resilience being how we view the world, reactive resilience, how we react to the world, and the skills are ways that we can teach ourselves and each other and kids how to create a more positive world. So we've got these 5 types of resilience, and I was just want to turn to you, Amanda, and say, having worked with this for quite some time, how does this
Yeah.
help you even consider um, tips to help kids have stronger well-being?
Well, I think I just go back to just your resilience slide and just the fact that it's really important as educators that we remember that all of these students, no matter where they are behaviorally or with any mental health challenges that they do have that inner capacity for resilience. And that can really just start in our classroom with just connecting and building those healthy relationships with our students.
Hmm, great. Thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
Uh, so at Dovetail, we have this really our stand about what matters. We've become our best selves by fostering our own personal resilience, internally, our relational resilience with others, which is such a critical piece. Um, when I have a better relational resilience with you, I have stronger resilience inside of me. And then group resilience. It's really all about relationships. So we said we're going to give you 5 tips. One of the things we're what Amanda and I are doing here is we're translating a program that Dovetail actually built for adults. Our work is SEL for adults because we found when we were teaching for many years an SEL program for students that teachers, or rather children who gained in social emotional development got it from teachers who modeled it. So this is about us and how that helps us understand what our kids need. So tip number 1, how we are matters. And we have this practice model coach method here that we have to practice the skills ourselves and model them for children to gain them. And I love this picture of the young woman with the violin because how do we get resilience? With practice, practice, practice. And our inner music impacts everything. Um, how was your inner music today at your first day back at work, Amanda?
Um, it's Actually, it stayed pretty even throughout the day. I had a few little bumps in the road where I had to just kind of check myself. So I feel like that's so important to just take space for yourself throughout the day to just check in. How am I? Where is my mind going? Where are my emotions going? Um, I was actually quite surprised. We have a bunch of new teachers at my district. So I see that little voice inside was wondering how today was going to go, and maybe possibly wondering if it was going to turn poorly, but it didn't go too bad because I think I was also not giving into it and realizing that, hey, the energy we put out there and how we show up really drives how the rest of, the people that surround you are responding as well. And so I think I showed up with my pom poms today. I cheered on the kids as they were coming in. I cheered on the teachers. And I think it really makes a difference to just have that positive mindset and make sure that you are okay and your inner music is in a positive space for the most part. Or if it's not, that's where the modeling, comes in, that you can teach your kids, hey, I might have a rough moment, but hey, we can get through this because, again, this is part of being human. We're not perfect all the time. We're not positive all the time.
Um, that's so awesome. Um, I love thinking of it in the context of neurobiology, or what it goes deeper to psychoneuroimmunology. How we are impacts our immune system as well as our nervous system, and how we are impacts other people's nervous system. So
Mm-hmm.
this idea of co-regulation, that part of how we can help students have better mental health is by regulating ourselves and thinking of, well, what do I need to do for my nervous system? You talked about stepping back from your day, taking a moment of pause just to gather yourself. Um, that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
It
So,
is. Well, and I also just recently over summer adopted the practice of morning gratitude. And I really think that just kind of setting the stage for your day, even if things are, going awry around you, if
mhm.
you start with something as simple, and you can do this in your classrooms, just take a moment or two to just acknowledge something that you're grateful for. And as simple as it sounds, it's really can create a really profound effect for your classroom culture to just kind of start your day like that.
Yes, boy, can't it? And modeling that for kids, saying what you're grateful for and creating space for them to say what they're grateful for. I know that can change the classroom completely, which then helps children feel safe.
Yes.
What we're talking about, what do children need to feel safe? Because mental health, again, coming back to that dissonant kind of word, because it has all those implications of problems, um, lets us just consider how um, the safety feature for children impacts them. And we're going to go into that in a minute. But I thought we would do first, just because, it's worth doing. Um, and that is to notice our own state of being right now. We like to walk our talk, and what I like to do is ring a lovely little bell here and invite all of us. We've got people uh, on the webinar from all over the United States, uh, different times of day. We've had full days. Let's just pause and notice our own state of being. So, with your kindness, I will ring the bell, but I have to make sure that not sure if I have the right sound on. We'll see. And I'd just like to invite everyone to pause, go internal, close your eyes if you're comfortable with that, and take a breath. And just allow yourself to notice the sensation of the breath deep in our bodies, the rise and fall, our posture, position, how tight our shoulders are, loose. and appreciate just the moment. And with a large cleansing breath, invite everyone back. And you know what? We've got a chat window. Um, would you just chat in your state of being right now? Um, and I'll put mine in as uh, tired and excited. Um, thank you, Amy. Relaxed, proud. Um, yes, something working with children and helping them in the best ways that we can. Um, thank you. Feeling
Right,
more.
like Zen. That's a nice one.
Yeah, I like that. I love feeling zen.
Me too.
I meditate every morning and try and get myself to that zen space. Um, and sometimes days are difficult. So just noticing and being with ourselves is part of the journey of helping others have well-being. It's again that how do we get there? Thank you, Tina. Yeah, emotionally drained, um, and I'm glad this is a distraction from whatever else is going on. But isn't it just part of our human condition to be emotionally drained? I have so many days at this time of the day, especially when I'm just emotionally drained, and what can I then do? And that's what we're going to explore here as we move forward. So thank you all of you for that. Got the little chat in piece. So just again, a little more on how we matter. This is from Jones, Buffard, and Weisbord, researchers at Harvard. Children learn from the way adults manage frustration, our emotional drain, our getting off track, how we stay focused in the face of things, and how we shift tactics. It's really that's modeling. A positive model is a child can see that we are off base and we can claim that and say, oh, I'm having a really hard day. And what I realize I need is a little more quiet, or if I could have just a moment before we start our next lesson. Then the children learn from our powerful modeling that it's okay to be off and that we can come back on, um, as opposed to being the perfect model where nothing ever bothers us, in which case kids can't learn from that because they think they have to be perfect. And of course, they're not, because none of us are.
No.
Um, and then lastly, how we are is because the caring adult is the number one factor in resilience, according to Bonnie Bernard's research. I've spent a lifetime as a researcher on resilience. And the number one factor is that relational piece, that relational resilience, the reaching out, listening to, being authentic with um, a child. So, Amanda, I'm going to skip forward a little bit um,
Okay.
and talk about, move into this next section, which is our next tip. Um, excuse me. Um, and we're going to use the mindset of curiosity to think about, well, what gets in the way of resilience. It turns out that understanding what gets in the way is one of the ways that we can help kids manage their well-being, because they have so many judgments on not being okay. And we do that, us humans. Anyone in the group have a very strong inner critic? Yeah, we all do, don't we? You're welcome, Adrian, for that time to just take a breath. And I did see there was an earlier piece. I will share the slides when I send out the recording. I'll send the slides of this webinar to everyone. Um, so what can get in the way of resilience? So we call this our human condition. We also, as I mentioned earlier, talked about protective patterns. So let's use our curiosity to think about how we react to the world. We all do that. We lose our cool. This is a stress curve that we use, and it talks about, we're going along fine and there's a stress event, and our reaction is our protective pattern. We're just trying to protect ourselves. And we lose our cool. We peak out, calm down, get depleted, and eventually get our feet back under us. But it can be a hard row to hoe. Um, so students protect themselves. They do it in all of these ways: distrusting, being hypervigilant, hyper caretaking, avoiding, defending, attacking. This is the stuff that we teach about, and it's just Amanda, you were telling me today
Yeah,
about.
I just had one today. I went out with my pom-poms. I was greeting kids. I had a student come up and ask for a pom-pom, and I said, sure. And then I said, oh, I recognize you from the other school. And he kind of put two and two together that that I worked at his last previous school and that I knew some information about him. And he was like, well, I'm just going to give you this back. And I think before I learned some of this content, I may have taken it really personally and felt emotionally invested. But I immediately was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, he is clearly distrusting and he has many reasons to be, and that's okay. And so it was just a really nice moment to realize, okay, like I can separate from this situation and realize he's just, in his protective pattern, trying to stay in his safe zone for the reasons that he has. And that's okay. And then that means, hey, I need to work more on building trust with this student. Maybe it'll be slow, but that's where I need to work with him. And so it gave me a lot of information too.
That's beautiful, Amanda. And you said something really important, which is students are just trying to keep themselves safe. So it turns out that all of us do that with our protective patterns. We all do these things: distrust, get hypervigilant, avoid, defend, hypercaretake, all these things. But they're born in us so that we can stay safe. And they still do that. So when we get that, it matters. So let's just take a fly through on these protective patterns just so you can get a sense of it. And then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So again, bringing our curiosity in. How do I protect myself? And I want to ask each of you, how do you protect yourself? And we'll start with distrusting, and just the idea of, do I doubt myself or others? How does distrusting help you, Amanda?
Um, Distrusting probably helps me to maybe avoid a situation that could potentially be, dangerous, or someone might disappoint me or something like that. So I think that's another whole piece of this, is just understanding these all play a piece and an important role, and they're not necessarily like put in the bad category. These
They're
all have
neutral.
served us, in some way or form that could have been positive at some point.
Yeah, I still, when I distrust myself, like getting ready for a webinar, sometimes I
Yeah.
distrust myself, and so I work really hard to get it right and try and get all the pieces in place. So distrusting serves me to work harder, and of course it can get in my way if I distrust someone and I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, as we all know. So. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we could spend the whole webinar on this. We have other webinars, but just hypervigilance, being on constant alert, hyper caretaking, over prioritizing others at our own detriment. And again, hyper caretaking is something that I learned. I have all of these. I learned it in order to, take care of my mom in an abusive household. It was
Right.
really important to be a hyper caretaker. And boy, did I learn how to avoid. So when you think of your students, boy, do they withdraw or retreat? I had to avoid my dad. I had to be hyper vigilant about where he was, what was going on, because I got slammed if I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I also learned how to defend myself. To act. I felt constantly judged and criticized, and I've had to pull that out of myself. So if you have a highly developed inner critic, we have to learn how to change our inner critic to a fair witness. And that's what.
These also, I think of, just the staff meetings, and it's easy to start noticing these within staff meetings, and having that awareness sometimes will help you to maybe build that empathy towards some other staff members that maybe you avoid or try to stay away from because they become defensive. If you realize it's a protective pattern, then we know we can work with it. It's and builds that empathy for them.
That's really good. Yeah, man, before this call, Amanda and I were talking about, well, working with kids is really the easy part. It's working with the adults that we work with that is sometimes the hardest.
And even bringing that, thinking about those parents that you work with all the time and the
Mm.
ones that are hard,
Yeah,
and kind of putting them here and thinking about what their protective patterns might be.
right. So if we want to help a child have greater well-being, sometimes it's through the parent and having compassion for that parent, for what they're having to do to stay safe, or they come into the classroom with their mama bear hat on, and they just want to scream. They're screaming their pain, which is of course what the kids are doing too. So if you're open to it, what protective pattern do you think you most use? I've named them all for me. I would say right now, I'm really paying attention to my hypervigilance and how it shows up because it
The hyper
stresses me out.
caretaking, avoiding,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, hyper caretaking, avoiding, um,
avoider. Yep.
fears, um, uh, defending. Really good. It's how does it feel to claim our protective patterns? I know for me, knowing that, yeah, it's empowering.
Empowering, yeah.
Yeah. So this is true for children too. I worked for years with teenagers, older teenagers, and did wellness work with them, giving them a chance to really claim and tame who they are. And it's so empowering to have them hear from others and each other and us what our protective patterns are. It normalizes and humanizes the whole thing that I love to call the human condition. Um, Thoughts about that, Amanda?
I'm thinking about how I've kind of evolved. I think I used to be avoiding and I moved to distrusting. So um, I just think the importance of knowing these in yourself is absolutely empowering and important to just remember, just to be aware of.
Mm, hmm. That's good. Um, so this is tip number two. We all have protective patterns, and kids
I'm
have.
also thinking too, Chuck, these can be so especially helpful with students because if you know which one they are, you can almost get ahead of it a little. Like I'm thinking of like avoiding, like building in the class breaks. If you know you have an avoider, let them make sure that they know they can always have a pass, things like that when you're doing circles in class.
Mm,
Defending, people that defend, to just make sure that you're constantly letting everybody know that they are they're safe to be heard. So that we need to have that, respectful listening, but that we all have a place in this class.
mm,
And the importance of kind of what you did before with the grounding. So I
mm.
feel like for those hyper vigilant students to just take those moments throughout the day to just kind of regulate them and make sure they're okay so that we don't have to automatically end up in these things where it doesn't serve us.
Perfect segue to what's next. We're going to talk about a couple of the skills for resilience. And I mentioned that this comes out of my Aikido training. Um, in the martial arts, you have no power if you're not centered. And literally centered in a vertical way. If I'm out of balance, if I'm leaning in any way, I lose power. So I have to center myself, and then I can reach out and we can connect together. And we have ways to do that. And then we can turn and work together, collaborating. So we're not going to go through. We are going to go through a few of these. I'll put it that way. And but I just want to show them all to you if you're not familiar with our approach. So what we have is we have workbooks. We have a book for educators you can download from our website. We are hot off the press with a student workbook. Amanda, you're going to love this.
Yay!
She's been
You guys
waiting
are so awesome.
so that students can be taken through these processes to understand what it means to really notice and pay attention and to breathe and let go and use gratitude as you were saying, Amanda, and understand what positive reframing is and how to nurture ourselves. The connecting skills, all of them start with noticing. First, it's about noticing the other. What's going on? It's like, what happened for this person? Amanda, you said you were doing restorative work yesterday with your staff. Um, and, it's changing the question from what's wrong with this person to what happened to them.
Exactly.
And so the shift to noticing others and what's happening for them, listening with our hearts and empathizing so that we can be kind and then be authentic.
And then students really feel that. I feel like, students more even so than adults sometimes just are more apt to feel energy and they can feel that shift when you're talking to them and listening to them that way.
Mm, isn't that so true? And then when we get to collaborating, uh, noticing the whole group and who's in the group and who's out of the group and what's happening for the group and the energy in the group, and then bringing in skills of intentionally appreciating and intentionally finding agreements and learning how to honor agreements and hold each other accountable, not just us as the adult holding a child accountable, but helping them hold themselves accountable so that they can contribute, which I should have a slide for this, but Bonnie Bernard's number 2 for resilience is kids need to have contribution. They need to have a place in their life where they feel like they make a difference and they matter and they
Purpose.
uh,
Yeah.
purpose, right? Um, so that's what these are all about. Um, so we're gonna go to just fly ahead here, a couple slides to letting go, and let's talk about letting go. Let's be curious about it. Think of it as a choice. How do we let go? And courage, which will. Did I skip that slide? No, it'll come later. We'll talk
And
about courage more fully and what it means to stand behind our values and have heart. So, letting go, letting go. Let's. How are we doing on time?
well, and I like letting go because I feel like if we think of the population that we're serving, especially after COVID times, we've got lots of that anxiety. So I feel like spending a lot of time on letting go and teaching these students and ourselves how to master that is really going to free us to be able to be, able to access all our academic stuff that we need.
Hmm. Say more a little about that, because I want to just go through these pieces of letting go. We talk about expectations and attachments and judgments and what's out of our control.
I
Maybe
just feel like we're filled up with so much stuff on the day to day, and we worry about so much stuff. And I think it's just important to take time to really think about what all this stuff is in our head and to kind of separate, okay, what is serving me and what's not, and trying to teach ourselves and our students how to let go of things that we have control over and things we don't have control over. And I think in one of your slides you have the circle of the, what I have control over and what I don't have control over. I've done that in counseling. I've done that circles of control. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, I've done that in classrooms. I've done that with many of my counseling students. And it's just freeing. It seems so simple, but to just take time to realize so much of what we're carrying on the day to day is
mm,
stuff we have no control over. And it's just taking up so much space and gets in the way of us being our best self.
mm,
Um,
mm.
So I think, thinking of my restorative circles too, this could be easily brought into a classroom where you have, like as you get to know your students and you build those relationships, to just have moments where whether they say it or they keep it to themselves, something that they're going to let go of.
Yeah,
Because we have to be intentional when we're teaching these messages. These are something we need lots of practice in, because it's easy to just let it all bog you down. And it's really getting in the way of you all being your best self and your students being their best self.
yeah, we can have kids write what they need to let go of on a piece of paper and throw it in the trash can. We can
Yeah.
do a letting go circle. I love that. Or a letting go brainstorm. What are the kinds of things we all need to let go of, and everyone can contribute, and everyone sees that everyone else has those same things they need to let go of. That's a regulation. That's a movement towards well-being. It's normalizing the tension that we feel when we're struggling because we have so much that we're hanging on to. And it matters neurologically. So I just love this image of the vagus nerve, which goes from the brain, and fully embeds in the heart and fully embeds in the gut. And when we're under tension, when we're under stress, uh, our vagus nerve is constricting, and our heart is constricting. We've got a whole bunch of science behind this that we're not going to go into today, but we know that it's not just the person that's needing to calm down, it's the entire nervous system that needs to be regulated. And it's just so deep in our embodied self that it matters, especially over time. So it's just to pull this up and say, am I most resilient at this moment, and what's possible here for me to let go of, to notice, to accept. And then when we can do this for ourselves, it gives us more of just a sense of how to do it with kids, um, and other adults. Um,
And I
so,
even think of staff meetings again, just a simple exercise that I've done with staff before is just, it's called a brain dump, where you're just letting things go, and then you can really see what's your priority, what's important to give attention to, and what's not.
that's good. Yeah, brain dump. Let it out.
Yep.
It makes me feel more relaxed just to think of a brain dump.
It's amazing, all this stuff we don't even notice, and then we can put it out on paper.
So we're going to spotlight two connecting skills: heartfelt listening and speaking authentically. And then we'll look at courage also. So tip number 4, heartfelt listening. Uh, Boy, Amanda, I don't think anyone listened to me around school when I
Mm.
was growing up. I was the lost child in the alcoholic family, and I was really good at avoiding, and I just don't have any recollection. I mean, it may have happened, but all the way through high school, I did not have teachers come to me and say, "Hey, what do you need?" You know,
Wow.
it's
And I mean, just saying it, like, how hard is it to just ask a kid what they need? you know, we
right,
can all be doing that.
right, yeah, um, makes such a big difference. So we have a little tagline for all of these tools, if you will. Heartfelt listening is a tool. If we're feeling apart, listen with the heart. Um, and what are the key pieces to that? And I'm not going to dwell on this slide too much, but rather have a have a talk about it. Non-judgmental, taking it in, giving space.
Well, and what a difference it would have made if a teacher would have asked you what you needed. It could have changed their whole perception of you, maybe given you, a little extra tea in class, and that would have maybe been a game changer for how you did academically and how you felt at school.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah, and it's the thing that I need most now also
Yeah.
as an adult We have this thing with adults where someone says what's going on, and then the other person immediately tries to fix them. Like, oh, I've got a
Yes.
solution for you. You could do this, 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 that. I don't want any solutions. All I want is someone to listen and feedback to me that they really heard that I'm emotionally spent today, or I'm not feeling about ready for tomorrow, or you know, it's the emotional uh, synchronization. I was looking for a better word than that, but
Yeah. And sometimes just that presence, right, can be heartfelt listening too.
exactly. Thank you for using that word. It's one of my favorite words. We matter through our presence. So, tip number 5, and this is about speaking authentically. So, how does this work for you with kids when you think about speaking authentically? Um, what do you notice about this when kids need something and we uh, let ourselves say what we're noticing? Any thoughts?
I know for me, I've had some of my best connections and breakthroughs when I feel sometimes like I may be not making a difference or I'm at a dead end in the road and I can just, you know, completely let down all the clinical stuff, all my interventions and just be real with kids and be authentic and just say, hey, maybe I don't know the answer. We're going to work on this together and figure it out. And sometimes just those moments to just be my true authentic self is when kids, I notice they really connect and that respect builds and that trust builds.
Yeah, isn't that so true? Brene Brown says that it's our vulnerability that's our greatest strength. And not being the one that needs to have the answer, but being the one that cares and can speak to that. Um, wow, boy, I see you're really having a hard day today, and I just want you to know I care so much. I wish I knew how I could help you, but I'm not sure. I mean, what a powerful message um,
Right.
to help a child feel safe, seen, heard. Um, it's uh, it's really something. Thank you, Tina, about the practice model coach, noticing for kids what we see, um, how they're learning. Um, well, speaking authentically is tip number 5. We try and keep these to 45 minutes. I'm going to go to the ending here, which includes the resilience mindset of courage. Um, and courage, let's see, that's slide 50, um, is what we were just talking about, the courage to be vulnerable. Courage comes from the root word core, which means heart. And if we follow our heart, if we listen deeply to what we're feeling and know what we know, then we can speak to that, like we were just describing, and use the idea of courage to be authentic, to face what's true for someone, and help them know that we see them, that we see them. Um, so I want to give you just a few. Well, let me just say first, Amanda, uh, any closing comments on helping students with well-being, given what we've covered so far?
I think just the theme of today for me is just showing up and taking that time to connect with your kids because it matters greatly for resilience. It's
And
it's
helping them
really all it's really the
whole.
building blocks of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, isn't it? Thank you. I love the way you said that. Um, So just before we close, a couple of resources from Dovetail Learning that are available. Remind you that we have an open education. All of our work is OER, open education, that's available. We have a book called Practical Skills for Resilient Educators. student workbook, bunch of video on our digital downloads, and I just couldn't not show you our new Practical Skills for More Resilience student workbook. It's the front cover on the left, and then one of the pages. So it takes every protective pattern, it takes every skill from all three subsets, centering, connecting, and it gives a work page to work with kids on. And then there's a QR code down at the bottom. They can use their iPhone, and it'll take them right to a page on our website that gives them a deeper dive into those things. So, Amanda, I just want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank
You're
you for inviting me, and
fabulous.
thank everyone for showing up. Thank you guys for being here. It shows that you really care about your students. So that's pretty amazing.
Yes, we so appreciate you showing up, and please reach out to us anytime. We love to help, and wish you all well.